Hi, I'm Greg Cummings, CEO of Power100, and we're here in Fishers, Indiana at BEE Window, where we're sitting down with Patrick Rinard, their CEO. And you might know we're sitting down with him because he's earned the top spot on Power100's national power rankings. Patrick, thank you for having us out, and we're excited to be here and learn a little bit more about you.
Absolutely, Greg. It's my pleasure, and it's actually an honor to be on your top 100 list. I know what it means, the culture of the company, and it's a pleasure to be on the list, and I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Awesome. Yes, so are we. Let me kind of set the stage a little bit here for people that don't know about Power100 quite as much. So what we do is we start with the nation's best, the top 7,600 home exterior remodeling leaders in this country. And then through our 5-layer proprietary ranking system, we narrow the field down to the nation's top 100. And that's obviously why we're here, because Patrick has earned a top spot on that list. Looking at that list just a little bit further, our 3 main focus areas are going to be culture, growth, and community. And that's why we're here, because you've been able to excel over these years, year in and year out, in all 3 of those categories. So that's why we flew in last month. We popped in on you, popped in at your office and kind of said, hey, can we have this interview? I was hoping you just talked to us, never mind accepted. So I appreciate that. And like I said, I'm excited to be here and learn a little bit more about you, Patrick.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So with the stage kind of set and my introduction complete, why don't you introduce yourself, Patrick?
Yeah, no, I appreciate it again, Greg. And you know, being the CEO of BEE Window is not an easy task, and being in the home improvement industry is not easy, obviously. Getting here was quite the journey. I don't know if you want the long version, Greg, or the abbreviated version of it, but you know.
Well, how about this? How did you become the CEO of BEE Window?
Well, you know, I'm going to tell you this. I think because it all ties together. You know, when I graduated from college, I started my first company when I was 22 years old. I realized that, you know, that I didn't want to go work for anybody else. I felt like what this was right here and what this was, nobody was going to pay me what it was worth. So at age 22, I got into the telecom industry. I started my first company in the satellite industry. I don't remember, do you remember those big dishes, Greg? The big 6-foot mesh dishes, you know, they kind of rotated around. Well, I got into that industry and, you know, it was at the tail end of it. And, but I was successful. I started my company and I was successful at, you know, selling quite a few satellite systems. But what I did do is I put everybody on a 3-year, you know, programming package, right? And what that, you know, escalated to is I sold that company after about a year for about 2 times what the subscriptions were worth. And at the time, do you remember when Bell South and AT&T broke up the monopoly? Yeah. And when they broke up that monopoly, allowed everybody to come in competition. Well, I recognized there was an opportunity, so I got involved in the resale of MCI. So I started a company where we had salespeople that would literally go out and transfer people's long distance over from AT&T and Bell South to MCI. I was like 23 years old. It was like the wild, wild west, but I had customers from Bangor, Maine, all the way down to Miami in a matter of 9 months. And they were paying me like $1 a month. You know, so I was making like, you know, $37,000 in residual income every month as a 23-year-old. And then overnight, WorldCom comes in and buys MCI out. Now I was 23 years old. I didn't have any contracts in place. So, you know, all that income went away. But what I did do is I'd put some money away. And at the time, it was the mortgage boom. And so everybody was getting into the mortgage industry because refinance rates had started to come down and people were refinancing. So I went out and got my mortgage broker's license. And I got involved in the mortgage industry and I started my own mortgage company when I was 25 years old. And after about 4 or 5 years, I was doing pre-approvals for people to get approved to go out and buy real estate, right? And I thought, well, why am I giving that money away? So I went out and got my real estate license and I started pre-approving people for a mortgage. Then I'd go find them a piece of property. I'd sell them the property and do the mortgage on it. And I was actually one of the first people in the state of Tennessee to actually write the mortgage clause. It was so that you could get paid on both sides of the transaction. It got approved by the board of realtors, and away we went. And then later on, I started doing construction to perm loans where people would come and want to build their own home. Yeah. And so I'd pre-approve them for a construction to perm loan and then hand them off to a contractor. And I thought, well, why am I giving this business away? So I got my general contractor's license. So at the end of it, going into 2008, I was actually, developing my own land, the roads, the curbs, the utilities and everything. I was selling the lot, building the house on the lot, listing it for sale, selling it, and doing the mortgage on it. So I was literally going this way when the economy and the industry was actually going the other way. Like millions of Americans, got caught by surprise in 2008 and 2009. So anyway, after about a year and a half of nothing moving, I mean, literally they shut down, all of the banking industry shut down for 120 days. Nothing was happening. So I had to do something, to provide for the family. And so I ended up started to consult for mortgage companies in Florida that were still doing refinances in the Northeast. So I was consulting with them for a while, and then I got headhunted by a couple companies out of Texas. I was in the energy business, I was in the telecom business, and over the course of about 5 years, I was with about 5 or 6 different companies consulting on startups. I was consulting on sales organizations and really how to train salespeople. And most of it was at the kitchen table, dealing with mom and pop of America, right? And a guy that I'd hired and trained 2 years prior to 2015 was working right here at BEE Window. I'd hired him to be a sales manager in the telecom industry in Chicago, Illinois. And at the time I was commuting from San Diego back to Chicago every 2 weeks. So I was flying back and forth every 2 weeks, and Matt Kendo was his name. Matt gave me a call one day out of the blue, and he said, Patrick, he said, I'm working for this home improvement company in Indianapolis. He said, I'm getting ready to leave and go out west. My wife just graduated from the VU, and they're going to take the bar out in Colorado. And he said, I want to leave the company better than I found it. He said, would you be interested? And I said, what do they do? He said, it's home improvement. I said, I love construction. That was my favorite industry of everything that I've ever done, was seeing something that was nothing and seeing it as if it was already done, and then finding somebody that would enjoy it as much as I did as it was being built, right? Yeah. And I thought, wow, I'm interested. And I said, is it in Indiana? Because at the time my wife was like, can you find something that's in the state of Indiana? And I'm like, okay, it's in Indianapolis, let's go. So I met with George, the owner of the company, right here in this office. We sat there on a Sunday for 5 hours, and we just sat there and talked. Basically kind of like what you and I, got to know one another. And at the end of the conversation, I realized that what he was doing with BEE Window was the combination of everything that I've ever wanted to do. It was construction, to get the fulfillment out of, helping somebody improve their most valuable asset, and it had to do with growing an organization, right? And being a part of something that was growing. And at the time, they'd been in business for 32 years, right? And they had their ups and their downs and whatnot. But when he looked at me, he said, what's your salary requirement? And I said, George, I've never had a salary in my life. I've always worked for myself. I said, but you got a piece of paper and a pen? And he pushed over a napkin that was on that table right there, which ironically is a kitchen table, but that was his desk. And I didn't even know it at the time because it was covered with so much, stuff, so many papers and magazines. But he pushed over a napkin. I think it had still some residual donut on there, from the morning donut. And I took it and I wrote a number on the top, and I put a line and wrote a number on the bottom. And I said, George, I really don't want a salary. I said, I just want a percentage of all the sales that take place in the company from today indefinitely. And I said, on the bottom, I said, I'd like to get paid, on the profitability of the company, because you don't want me to give away the top number just to make a commission. You want to be able to make a profit, on that while you're delivering a quality product to the customer. And so we shook hands, and that's how we got started. And that was 8 years ago, Greg.
That's awesome. You guys have had tremendous success over the course of those 8 years. It's got our attention, and I think everybody in the state of Indiana at the end of the day. But before we go into that, let's take it back let's go back a lot. It's kind of our signature question here. And it is, what is the earliest lesson, Patrick, that you've learned that you still carry to this day?
Would you say childhood lesson or?
Yeah, the earliest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so a lot. I came from a family of 4. I was the youngest. We grew up on a 140-acre farm in Michigan, right? So we had cattle, And, my mom went to the store for like literally 3 things. She went to the store for sugar, flour, and spices. Everything else we got from the farm, right? And so obviously all the kids had a lot of responsibilities, but one that sticks out in my mind, and I actually, use this all the time. I've used it with all 5 of my kids. I use it today in, analogies with the company. But my dad gave me the responsibility, I was 12 years old, of taking care of 5 acres of potatoes. 5 acres of potatoes. Now, it may not seem like a lot to you, but I'm going to tell you what. These things were 24 inches apart. The rows were 36 inches apart, right? And you got 5 acres of them. Now there's what? 43,560 square feet in an acre, right? Yep. And you take that times 5, right? Now you'd have to divide that by about 6 square feet.
I'm exhausted just thinking about it.
It's somewhere around 35,000 plants.
Okay.
All right, 5 acres, right? Now, you have to dig a hole. You have to, dig a hole with a planter. You have to put a potato in it, and you stomp it in the ground, then you cover it up, and then you go 24 inches, and you do it again. So I had to plant them, right? And then as that plant starts to grow through the ground, it starts to come through the ground, you have to protect it. So my job then was to hoe like 5 little hills of dirt around the plant to protect it so that it could grow. Right? And as the plant grew, the bigger the plant was, the more the potential the potatoes were in the ground, right? So you had to really nurture each individual plant. So I'm looking at this, and majority of this was going to be done during the summer, okay? I looked at my dad. I'm 12 years old. I want to go play with my friends. I'm like, Dad, I'm never going to finish it, not only this summer, but it'll take me years to even accomplish doing all this. Plant it, hold the dirt around the potato, and then when the bugs got on there, I'd pick the bugs off, right? Now, before I even get to digging the potatoes up and what we did with them, I looked at that field and I said, there's no way I can even get started. And so my dad said, hey, why don't you do this? He said, why don't you just go ahead and hoe as many as you can. Let's just see how many you can do in a minute. So I went ahead and I put 5 little hoes of dirt around each plant, and I was able to do about 10 of them in a minute. So it took me about 6 seconds, right? And my dad broke it down. He said, literally, okay, now if you can do, say, 10 of them, or whatever, what did I say? It was 10 of them, right? In a minute. He said, you can do 60 of them in an hour. So if you can do 60 of them in an hour, you basically take the 35,000, and you can do, 600 in an hour. And what is that? It's somewhere around 60 hours. Now, I'd have to rest and have some water. Sure. So I figured 10 minutes every hour I'd take a break. So you add about 6 hours to that. So it's going to take me about 66 literally man hours to go ahead and do this. I didn't think I'd be able to finish it in a month, a year, 2 years, alone.
Just looks way too big when you're looking at it.
Right, but he broke it down to the ridiculous. And he said, go ahead and tell me how many you can do. Then he did the math on it and said, hey, it literally take you 66 hours. So you want to work 9 hours a day? You could have this thing done in what? No time at all. And I thought when he put it in that perspective, I was able then to actually get started on the project because I knew it was attainable, right? And so you asked me, what's the earliest lesson I've learned? It's that. Because now when I look at anything in this company that looks like a mountain, whether it's me looking at the mountain, it's something I don't even feel like we could get started, or it's one of my teammates or managers or an employee that's looking at a task that we give them that says, oh my God, this is almost unattainable. We break it down to the ridiculous, and I tell them the potato story, and all of a sudden, bam, we can get it done. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense.
And so the reality of it was that lesson has stuck with me now for over 40 some years.
That's powerful. You can do a lot when you're able to take that first step, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of potatoes.
It is a lot of potatoes. Well, as you're telling that story, I'm thinking like this business is a lot like planting potatoes because you got to start over every year, right? You literally have one bag. If you don't nurture and take care of that crop, you're going to lose the whole bunch. Yeah. If you mess up one installation, you're going to lose all the possible referrals that come with that over the life of that client at the end of the day.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, we will get more business from doing one quality installation than we could possibly get from any television, radio, newspaper commercial. It doesn't matter. I mean, word is going to travel, 10 times faster than a television commercial will. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah, it's commendable how you've been able to take that process, simplify it, and then lead this team to the growth and the record that that you guys have achieved. Because a lot of times that big picture of a dynamic leader like yourself can be overwhelming for people. But when you're able to break it down into obtainable checkpoints, if you will, you can see a lot of success. Returning back to BEE Window, how has BEE Window contributed to your leadership growth, your personal leadership growth over the last 8 years?
Yeah. I've always told, my team that you never arrive in this business, you're always approaching, right? So there's always something to learn, and there's always someone to learn from, right? You just got to be willing and open-minded to be able to recognize it, right? And so as I've come up through my, professional career, 5 of these 6 entities I owned myself, right? They weren't nearly as large as BEE Window is. We have 105 families here, 105, employees that have families, right? When I was working, for my other companies, I was literally doing it all. I was doing the sales, I was doing the marketing, I was managing the construction. I was overseeing the mortgages. I was doing the books. I was paying the bills. I was, doing payroll. I was doing the accounting. I was literally a one-man show, right? With the exception of the MCI, deal. But now, what I've learned over the last 8 years is I've got a team. I've got a team of 105 people, and I've learned to be able to, equip them, train them, and empower them to go do the job that they were hired to do. So I've taken my, talents and abilities and I've multiplied it 105 times, because I can't do it all, and you've got to trust other people to do that. So I think the key there would be the equip, train, and empower, is what I've learned to be able to do that, over the last 8 years has been able to help us really expand and grow.
I'm curious, what is over the 8 years, you've probably had to make a lot of hard decisions. You talk about equipping, training, and helping people grow. What's one of the hardest decisions that you've had to make since you've been here?
Well, there's been a lot of them. Hard, challenging. Yeah, they all have different definitions. But I'll tell you, one, it's kind of funny, but it was probably, looking back on it, was probably the most challenging transition that we had to make in the history of the company. And that was going from an antiquated, a system of paper, of actually taking an order on paper in folders about this thick, okay? And when I got here, it was crazy. I mean, literally, there's people running all over this office looking for a file folder with a name on it, right? That had the details of the order on it, potentially a check in there. Right? And people are running around looking, where's the Johnson's file at? And I'm like pulling my hair out. I'm like, are you kidding me? We're holding up production because we can't find a file, whether it's upstairs, downstairs, or somebody borrowed it to do something. And I'm like, this has got to stop, right? And so immediately I started asking the question, how do we transition to digital? How do we compress time frames? How do we take this antiquated system of paper and speed it up and make it more efficient? And it's crazy because we started out with just an old antiquated technology called cam scanner. I don't know if you've ever heard of cam scanner.
I've used it actually.
Okay, cam scanner was one of the first OCR technologies.
The OGs.
Yeah. And so what I did is that I had the salespeople go ahead and detail it out on the paper. But what would happen is they would be up north. They'd be in other parts of the state. We could wait a week to get the folder turned in before we could go and measure it and then go to order. And I'm like, this is crazy. So I had them do the OCR, the cam scanner. So they would literally cam scan it as soon as they sold the job that night. So at least we would be able to go ahead and schedule measure within 24 hours. Then I would wait for the folder to come in to get the check or whatever we needed to do. Now, that whole process, I got fought by everyone, including the owners of the company. Nobody wanted to change.
Well, it's not how we used to do it. That's not how we do it.
It's 32
It's not
years.
how we do it.
32 years. Nobody wanted to change.
That's a touchy subject.
Yeah, and so when it came from the top down and the owners were like, we're not doing this, and I'm like, listen, let's just give it a try. So we tried it, and like anything, any change, it had some hiccups. It had some challenges and struggles with it. And immediately everybody wanted to go back to the paper. And I'm like, no, we're not going back to paper. We started this, we're going to finish it. It will get, sometimes things have to get worse before they get better.
Usually do.
And in this particular case, now we're evolved to 100%, technology, driven. Not only that, but you might want to see this at some point in time, but upstairs, we have over 40 years, 80,000 files that are sticking in a manila folder like you would see in the dentist office.
Okay, so that's called a museum, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Archived data.
And you still have that here?
We do. I mean, there's not a lot of companies, Greg, that can say when you get a customer that calls from 1985 and they need service on their windows. I don't know any other home improvement company that can walk in the back, go through a locked door, pull out the exact file, open it up, and see what product they purchased in 1985 so that we could go ahead and order the service for it.
That's incredible. So it's like, hey, we do have 80,000 plus customers. Here they are.
Here they are.
I want to see that if that's okay at some point.
We'll have to get you some security clearance, but we'll get you in
Yep, I was fingerprinted on the way in, so I think we're okay. But no, that's interesting. Yeah, making that transition from digital from the paper to digital is very, very difficult, especially when you already had a pre-existing team that was set in their ways. And then that's commendable that they're able to kind of follow your lead and do that. What do you believe, the only way that you're able to get that, in our opinion, is by having the right culture, the right belief. Here at BEE Window, what would you say, if you had to pinpoint, Patrick, the one thing that drives the company culture here at BEE Window, what would you say that is?
I don't know if I can say it's just one.
If you had to.
There was a key word there you said, belief. What is the belief level that you would have, or the culture, right? Number one is, the belief is not why we can't do something, but the whole brain is controlled by the questions that we ask. I think everybody would agree with that, right? And a lot of times when you run into a challenge in your life or whatever, you ask why. Why is this happening to me? Why can't I do this? Or why can't I do that? Or why is this, only happen to that person? Well, when you ask the question why like that, the brain's always going to retrieve a negative answer. And all it does, you'll go on about your way, right, for the day, and the brain's going to continue to try to answer that question and reinforce a negative question, right? So the belief level in the culture of this company is how? How can we make this change? How can we adapt and overcome? How can we make the customer happy? How can we make the best, working environment for our employees? How do we find the best product? How do we price it and get it the most competitive? How do we get the best warranty? The question's how, right? So I wanted to comment on the belief level, okay? It's not why, it's how. How can we get something done, right? Which promotes a positive answer. And the brain is going to work overtime to try to get you the answer to the reason or the question how. The second thing I think is the culture. We have 105 employees, so we're still a small size company, right? And we're regional. We're here in the state of Indiana and Southwest Michigan, right? But we have a family culture. It's a family-owned business. George and Pam have owned the company for 40 years, right? They've always had an open door policy. Anybody can come and talk to them, right? And so I adopted the same philosophy. Everything that I'm talking about, most of it has come from the culture that George and Pam created. All I'm doing is just carrying on the tradition of the culture, and that's a family-run, family-oriented business where people can come. We don't have a lot of bureaucracy or red tape or hoops to jump through. You got a problem, we sit down as a family and we solve it. You know what I mean? And so I think that's the culture that the company is built on. And it doesn't matter how big we grow, I think that will continue to follow us. Now, will it be challenging? Yeah, because now this size, you have to have an HR department and you got to do things like that. But at the same time, you can still have that family atmosphere.
Yeah. Yeah, that's powerful. That's a very powerful position. And now, flipping back, there's another side that drives culture, and that's the leader. That's you. If we were to go and, all around and we were to ask, all your employees, what do we think of Patrick Rinard and we close the door and we tell them we're not going to tell you what they say. What do you think, in a couple sentences, what do you think the overall consensus is of you as the leader?
Sentences are a word. I guess it would all depend on what door you shut. I don't know. But, I think it's like anything in family. I got 5 kids, right? I can't please them all at one time. But what I do is give them all equal attention, when they need it, and to help them grow and to, accomplish the tasks that they want. But I think, maybe in a couple sentences, I would say that motivation, they would look at me as a motivator. I'm always going this way. People have stopped asking me how I'm doing. I used to walk through that door every morning and I'd get met by 1 or 2 people and they're like, how you doing, this morning, Patrick? And I'm like, I'm always good and I'm going this way. And literally I would say that so often that it actually became a part of our, our company culture, our mantra. Everybody's going this way. One day, Mike walked into my office. He's my controller, and he's like, I'm like, Mike, we got to do this. We got to do this. We got to pay attention to these things right here and these KPIs. We got to do this. And he's like, Patrick, do you ever slow down? I'm like, Mike, we're going this way. Yeah. And so I like to motivate. And I say I'm a motivator, but at the same time, I think people would say that that I expect a lot. I expect a lot from people. But I will never ask somebody to do something that I haven't already done myself or I'm not willing to do, number one. But I command excellence. I want the best. I ask for the best. I'll empower somebody to make them the best. I want the best products. I want the best warranty. I want the best installation. I want the best service for our customers. I want the best of everything. And so I am kind of demanding in that way. And I also have a rule that if you're not 5 minutes early, 5 minutes late. And so every appointment we show up to, we show up 5 minutes early. You know what I mean? Because I don't want to lose a potential job or a customer because we didn't show up when we were supposed to. So I think I'm fair. I think I'm demanding, I'm motivating, and I'm fair. But I also, am willing to train and coach.
Okay. Now, would you mind going to grab those 5 employees that we have over there? No, that's all great. Details really matter, and I think your focus on growing up, right? Or is it this or this? What is the?
Yeah, well, I mean,
all right, it's that.
Greg, even rocket ships have to leave the atmosphere on an angle.
There you go. Your focus on growth is important because if you don't grow and you don't have the right culture, you're not going to have profitable growth, right? If you don't have the right culture. Yeah. And then at the end of the day, if you're not profitable as a company, you can't do one of the most important things, and that's be involved in the community. But as far as your growth goes, just to kind of put some numbers behind it, from the time you got here in 2015, you guys have grown from a revenue standpoint, from everything that we've found, you have grown by over 300% from a revenue standpoint. But that's great and all, but with your operational efficiency on that, Patrick, you guys have grown by more than 500% on an efficiency level, meaning you guys are not only growing on a dollar and a number of jobs standpoint, but you're actually able to do things more efficiently. So you're able to do more jobs in a course of a year. You're able to help more customers in a course of a year. You're able to then provide more opportunities for your 105 employees in the course of a year, right? What do you contribute all of that success to? And more importantly, how do you maintain your team's energy and focus year in and year out as you guys basically continue to have a successful year every single year? How do you maintain that inertia to do it again?
Yeah, a lot of energy. But I look at this like any kind of athletic team. The head coach is only as good as the assistants and the managers around them, right? And there's no possible way we could have obtained that much growth and increased that much in profitability if we didn't have a great management team in place. If you have a football team, you have 11 players on that team, and I played football in the SEC. By the way, the best conference in NCAA football. I'm just kidding.
We won't hold it against you.
But you have to have each individual player on that team has to do their job. you know, if you're going to, you know, get to the end zone, or if you're going to prevent the other team from getting to the end zone. So number one, I'll attribute to the leadership team, the management team, and the overall, you know, 105 employees that have bought into the philosophy and the culture of the things that we had to go through in order to make those, you know, those increases, if you will. Yeah. So I will give, you know, all of the credit to that, you know, having a phenomenal team around me, you know, so that we can implement and execute on the plans that were put on paper. So I think that is the number one reason why we are where we are today.
It's amazing because your success is so important in the past in this business, because we've seen competitors fall off, they start, they go out of business, whatever the case may be, they drop their rates. If, you know, I've been in this long enough, if you start seeing people just dropping rates crazy below what they were offering yesterday, willing to do jobs, they're trying to pay yesterday's bills at the end of the day, right? 2024 holds a little bit of a nerving year for a lot of homeowners here, because of, one, it's an election year. We got interest rates, financial issues, wars, you know, all over the world. But that's always going on. There's always some form of chaos happening. Right. But my question to you is, you know, in our due diligence, in our research, in our audit process of BEE Window, you know, we have deemed you guys as a very, very financially strong company. Your foundation is good. You're not overextended. You know, customers are in good hands, we believe, long term for you. You're going to be here to, you know, for them, for whatever their needs are, a different project or maintenance or warranty, you name it, right? But I guess my question is, with your goals and aspirations in 2024, how does being a financially strong, foundationally strong company play into the fact of your confidence going into a year like 2024?
Yeah, I think that's a two-part answer to the question. I think number one, you know, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't think any of us do, or else we wouldn't be here today, right? But, you know, I think what we're looking at, you know, is you know, an economic change in the United States, right? And what we're starting to see is the demand starting to slow a little bit. But here's what I believe, okay? This is my opinion, is what's happening is right now is you've got, you know, banks that have lent out trillions of dollars, okay, over the course of the last 15 years, 12, 15 years, and recently in the last 10 years at 2 to 3% interest, Greg. Literally, there's trillions of dollars in mortgages at 2 to 3% interest. They borrowed it at 0%, right? These people, in my opinion, are not willing to give up a 2 or 3% interest rate on their mortgage currently to go and purchase real estate at the highest, most inflated price in history and take on a double whammy. Not only are they buying real estate at its all-time high, but they're also buying it with an interest rate of 7.5% to 8%. It doesn't make sense for a lot of these people. So what I feel like is the economy is still strong, okay? If you look at everything that's coming out, CPI, PPI reports, everything is still strong in spite of everything the Fed's been trying to do, right? The unemployment rate is still low. People are still looking for jobs. Here's what I think is going to happen. Those people that are sitting in 2 to 3% mortgages aren't going to move. They're going to improve. They're going to stay in place. And instead of going and buying their dream home and paying, you know, an astronomical overinflated real estate price for it, they're going to go and improve their most valued asset. And I feel like the home improvement industry will be poised to capture only those companies that are in a position to be able to market and advertise, right? And be able to go and get that demographic, right? I think a lot of companies have come into the industry over the last 3 years because of the boom. I think you'll see some of those get bought up. I think some of them won't be here, but the strong will survive. And I think there will be a tremendous opportunity for those companies to capitalize on that while delivering high quality products to those people in those 2 to 3% mortgages.
Yeah, there was a financial expert, a home improvement financial expert that said the next 5 years are going to be the golden age of home improvement because of what you just said. There's no necessarily sign of interest rates coming down for building or selling or moving, whatever the case may be. And so people are going to stay in place. Yeah. And all of a sudden downsizing, it's now cheaper not to downsize. Let's just fix up and do these home improvement projects.
Yeah, and I mean, again, that's my opinion. I look at like the factual data, like you look at it every day in the financial world. But I think the second piece to that is, how will we position ourselves as a company in that, right? Well, obviously, we're going to go after that demographic. Those are the people, the economy's still good, the 401ks are still good, the disposable income is still there. So they have the money to improve their most valued asset. It's going to be able to define the strategy and to go after and market to those so that they know that we're here. Obviously, BEE Windows is more than just windows, windows and doors and siding, and we do bath and shower models and porch conversions, and literally we have something to offer that particular demographic of a customer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to strategically look at what can we do in our current markets, right? The outer markets, like, what can we do in Fort Wayne, in South Bend, in Lafayette, in Northwest Indiana, in Evansville. Instead of going and expanding, east and west in Illinois and Ohio and going south into Kentucky, why don't we become more efficient, stay in our own territory, strategically spend the money to go after the demographic where we can reach them, economically, keep our prices lower so that we can appeal to them and help them improve their most valued asset. So that's my plan.
I mean, if you're not increasing all your overhead and you're able to offer more products to your customers that your pre-existing customers, I mean, that's a recipe to win every time. You're helping those customers again and again. They're able to make that purchasing decision much easier because they already trust you.
That's right.
So that's very powerful. And obviously having a solid financial foundation is going to help you then market and get the word out to them as far as what's new with BEE Window, right?
Right.
What else are we going to be able to, offer those customers?
Yeah, I think you got to be in a position to be able to spend money, to be able to reach these people. And now in this day and age, everybody's, on the move. We live in a microwave, fast food type world. We don't have as much time. So we got to be able to adapt to that and get to these people.
Well, that's great, the foundation, everything. What we want to do, and what are the biggest pillar of Power 100 is community. I mentioned it before, we focus on three things when we're ranking the individuals and companies across the country. It's going to be culture, growth, and community. And it's fine if you can have a great culture that helps you grow and make money. But if you make money and you don't invest it the right way, then you're not a top leader, in the country. And so BEE Window, under your leadership, has been able to be exemplary in giving back to the charity, being involved in the community that you work in. This way, when a client or a customer hires you to do a project for them, not only are they getting something, but they're giving something to their community, and they're hiring local people, which is something that we take a lot of pride in. And we want to make sure that we give that credit and that stage to the right folks like yourself. Could you describe or discuss a little bit of BEE Window's community initiatives and the charitable contributions that you guys make?
Yeah, I mean, over the years, George and Pam have been really involved in, several different charitable organizations. Since I've been, taken over as the CEO of the company, we've gotten involved in a few more. OVAR Coming Together is one of the organizations that was started by Pam Faber back probably in the 90s. She was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and she was cured from ovarian cancer. But out of that, she started a foundation called OVAR Coming Together, and we literally donate to that organization every single month. And then in the month of September, all of the sales personnel, the measure techs, the installers, literally everybody gets a little business card, and we have flyers. We have signs that we will put out in people's yard, try to make people aware of ovarian cancer, and then we donate a percentage of all of our sales during the month of September. Will also go to that foundation. Over the years, we've been a big supporter of the Midwest Food Bank, and donating a percentage of our sales to the Midwest Food Bank. It's actually still on our website, so that they can take advantage and get to people that are in need, the homeless and people that are less fortunate, and delivering food to their homes. We're involved in Make-A-Wish Foundation, pretty heavily in Make-A-Wish Foundation, also the Salvation Army. We are the title sponsor of the Salvation Army Drive each year. I think in November, we sponsor a radiothon each year and donate money to the Salvation Army. And obviously everybody knows, the impact that the Salvation Army has. We've been involved in, catastrophic events that are not particular ongoing, but, we had a tornado went through Kokomo here about 4 or 5 years ago, and it just kind of devastated that whole area. We donated, literally hundreds of thousands of retail, product, to the people that were affected by that. So we try to get involved in any kind of a catastrophic event that happens in our community, if it's within our means. We've gotten involved with the homeless veterans and helping them find homes. So we'll do a one-time, two-time donation, for the veterans. Also, St. Jude. I'm a big supporter personally of St. Jude, and as a company, we're a supporter of St. Jude. FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes. We're involved with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and last year we had an opportunity. We sponsored a golf outing here in Indianapolis, and we had an opportunity to be able to write an encouraging letter to a member of an FCA camp. It's anonymous or whatever, but we had a chance to write that letter, and I spoke a little bit about athletics in that letter and perseverance and things like that. But that's pretty neat. But as organizations pop up, we're excited to be able to help out our community and give back where people are in need, and you can't do that if you're not a profitable company.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, it is so commendable on how you guys, not only with the money you're able to be generous, but it's also time, it's energy, it's resources that are pulling from other departments that are focusing on all those charitable events that you just mentioned. Yeah. Is there one that's more? Is there one that's a little bit closer to you that you tend to focus on, maybe just a little bit more than the others?
Yeah, like I said, I'm a personal supporter of St. Jude and also our company as well. But my son Colton, he's on the wall back there. All 5 of my kids are on the wall back there. They're all going this way.
That's it.
But when Colton was 12 years old, he was diagnosed with leukemia. He was an incredible athlete. I mean, just incredible. He was an incredible football player, soccer player, just epitome of health. And he got diagnosed. And back then, they didn't have enough research or to determine a shorter regimen of therapy. So he had to go through 2 years of like chemotherapy and radiation, and he lost his pretty much all of his youth to that disease. Wow. And so it's a terrible disease, and you look at these kids that have to go through that, and so that's close to my heart, to be able to see a kid be able to make a wish, and get that wish fulfilled. Yeah. And so, but now Colton's healthy. He's 30 years old. He lives over in Thailand, and he actually is doing some marketing for a home improvement company off the little coast on a little island there in Thailand and Malaysia. So he loves what he's doing. Awesome. But it wouldn't have been possible if it wasn't for St. Jude Children's Hospital. And
that's cool. That's a great story. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. I appreciate it. And when you're able to take care of your family, both your immediate and your extended family and your community, all of a sudden, you look at the customers and your clients, it's kind of easy to take care of them, right? You're just doing a home improvement project for them. And you've been able to do this for over 40 years as a company, right? 81,000 clients. How do you ensure from your position that each customer gets a world-class experience?
Yeah, so that's the goal. Like I said, you'll get more business from one great install, one happy customer than you will any kind of a television ad, radio ad, newspaper, web, it doesn't matter, right? And so obviously it's somebody's most valued asset, and we want to make sure we take care of it. So it starts with high quality products, right? It starts with the best installation crew, It starts with the best, marketing, service, operations team. It starts with the best, right? Because if people all don't care, if everybody in this company doesn't care about the customer first, if they don't put the customer first, they're not going to get that world-class installation like they deserve. And number two, if we don't care, and if it doesn't go exactly the way it's supposed to right off the bat, it's not going to get taken care of like it's supposed to, right? So I think it starts with that culture of, listen, we're going to do the job one time and we're going to do it right. And if it doesn't get done right the first time, we're going to fix it and we're going to make it right. At the end of the day, we want every customer to be a raving fan, of the whole process. So everybody's got to be bought into the customer has to be first.
The how.
That's right. How do we make the customer 100% satisfied?
Do you have a story that exemplifies that from maybe a customer? Because we're not defined by the 80,000 jobs that went great, right? We're defined by the 1,000 jobs that didn't go right, that didn't go perfect, that didn't go the way to plan. There was a breakdown in communication. You didn't show up 5 minutes early, right? You showed up 5 minutes late. Something small to that, this ordering the wrong product. Right? Nobody's perfect.
Right.
And again, I'm talking about the 1%, not the 99% that go great.
Right.
Do you have a story that kind of exemplifies your process and your mentality of maybe a real customer situation, that if there is somebody out there that wants to use you for a product, then in the back of their mind, what if something goes wrong? What would I expect from Patrick and his team at BEE Window? Mm-hmm. What would that be?
Well, and it does happen. Things do go wrong. There's a lot of moving parts, right? It could have been, measured incorrectly. It could have been ordered incorrectly, right? It could have been manufactured incorrectly. It could have been shipped and broken when it got unloaded off the truck, right? There's a lot of things that could happen, and it does happen, right? But it's really about the process of what do you do when it does happen, right? And again, it goes back to the management staff that's handling, the customer response at the time you're getting that, what's going on type thing, right? And so the culture there would be, number one, I want everybody to listen twice as much as they talk. Just let the customer explain to us what happened. Don't try to interrupt. Don't try to make excuses. Yeah. Don't try to justify, but just sit and listen, okay? Because this is they're spending a lot of money, right? And they're frustrated. So by the time you listen to it, you gather all the facts. Then we get together and we figure out how can we, take care of this? How do we provide a solution for this customer? How do we do it expeditiously? And how do we make them a raving fan at the end? So again, if everybody in the company is not bought into the customer experience has to come first, none of that will happen. Now, occasionally you will get customers. I can count on one hand. We do probably 2,000 jobs in a year. I can count on one hand where it gets to the point where I would have to get involved where they want to talk to an owner or they want to talk to the CEO of the company, right? And George and Pam have talked to customers, their whole career. They've offered their cell phone number, to every single customer. My cell phone number is on every email. If somebody needs to get in touch with me, they have my cell phone number. We're not hiding from anybody, but occasionally I will talk to a customer. We've had one here most recently that this lady, and I'm not going to say the name, but she had lost several family members to COVID. She had purchased product from us. One thing after another had gone wrong with this, okay, during this period of time. And she had purchased several doors from us, right? And when the doors came, we went and installed the doors, and she said the color was wrong. It's not the right color. Now, the doors have been, somewhere in Canada, I don't know where they were, but we didn't have them. And this job was delayed beyond imagination, right? So she just wanted her doors. You can imagine what she's going through just emotionally with her family, right? And when the doors get installed, she said they're not the right color. So we listened, we got all the facts, went back, looked at the contract. The contract said it was this color. We looked at the measure documents that confirms the color. The color was confirmed. She signed the measure document stating that the color was what we installed, right? Yeah. But it wasn't the color she wanted. So
Tough situation.
Dan, okay, which you had a chance to meet, okay? I introduced you to Dan in our paint and stain shop.
Yep.
Been with the company for almost 20 years now. We went out, found out what color she wanted. Dan went to her house personally, painted the doors the color that she wanted. It wasn't that the contract was, the contract was right. Yeah. The measure documents were right. We delivered the product that she, had signed for, but she wasn't happy. Right? Now, Dan went out there, painted the doors. Not only did she go get Dan a gift card, like a $100 gift card, but she got all the installers a gift card. At the end of the day, she's a raving fan of BEE Window. Now, that's just one example, but we do go through that quite often. Sure. When you're doing 2,000 jobs a year, you're going to run into situations like that. And at the end of the day, I think if we just listen, then we grab the facts, and then you just got to make a judgment call. Right. I mean, what's the most important thing here? Right. Do we hold somebody to an agreement, or do we give them the color they wanted? Yeah. You know what I mean? So I guess that would be an example.
That's awesome, because those are the types of stories that makes the difference between somebody that is on our list and somebody that's not on our list. If you're not willing to make that decision and that call, and it's not even, you don't even do it grudgingly, right? You're doing it because this is what we believe. This is our mantra. This is who we are.
The question is how.
The question is how. The question is how. I love it. Putting the customers first. I really appreciate your generosity with your time, having us come out, accepting us when we did the pop-in. That was great as well. I really believe we've spent a lot of time evaluating your company, as you know. You're very well deserving of one of the top spots in the country, Patrick. And frankly, BEE Window's lucky to have you at the helm. I truly believe that. Final question for you. What prompted you to accept the interview with us at Power 100 here? That's it.
It was your amazing charisma, Greg. Yeah, that overpowering handshake that you gave me. You said, you're going to let me come back, right? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely, you're going to let you.
I bribed the gal in the front,
You made I guess you made a really good connection with my marketing manager, Carly. I think, when she tells me to do something, I do it. So, but no, all seriousness and foolishness aside, I mean, your company, what you're building here, the brand, the culture, the meaning, what you're trying to create here is a third-party awareness for the consumer. Okay, you're an unbiased third-party, organization that has developed some, proprietary algorithm that first identifies, this potential company or this potential individual that may be, that leadership that people are looking for, right? And then through this process, it's either vetted or not vetted. But I look at it like this: as your organization continues to grow and it becomes more popular, I see people looking to Power 100 for, that added assurance that they're going to spend their hard-earned money with somebody. They got somebody out there like you advocating for them and making sure that when they spend their money with BEE Window, that it's going to get done, and it's going to get done right, and they're going to be satisfied. So I believe in what you're doing. I wish you the best of luck in what you're doing, and if there's anything I can do to help support the organization, I'd be glad to do it.
Yeah, I appreciate the kind words and the support and the confidence in the platform and what we're doing. The only thing that I think we should do, after getting to know your staff and everybody that's working here, this true family environment, I don't know if you're open to it, but I think we should do a couple more of these. Let's maybe even, follow you, throughout the year, do a dozen more, interviews. This way we can kind of pick up and where we left off and kind of have this journey throughout the year. I'm just kind of figuring this out. I don't know what it looks like, but if it's something you're open to and you like it, can obviously have our people, put it together and we can put a bow tie on it.
Yeah. Maybe just kind of like the quarterback series.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. No,
I like that.
No, I enjoy the conversation, Greg, and I think the questions that you've asked actually helps me get back into the right thought process and remember why I'm doing this. You know what I mean? And it's not over yet. So I think by doing that, it would challenge me, and then I would challenge the rest of my company and my organization, my management team, to be the best we can so that we can continue to deliver really good news and results, you know, so that you can take it to the public.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate your time, Patrick. This has been incredible. Again, I'm Greg Cummings, CEO with Power100, and we look forward to many more of these. And we want to thank you for tuning in. We really appreciate your time and your confidence in Power100.